Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Socorro, Texas. It is July 16, 2024, 5:33 p.m. We call this meeting to order.
Good afternoon, everyone. Item number 2, establishment of quorum. Andrew Arroyos,
Here.
Enrique Cisneros,
Here.
David Estrada, absent. Julie Dominguez, absent. Osvaldo Reza,
Here.
Yolanda Rodriguez.
Here.
We have quorum with 4 commissioners present. Moving on to item number 3, notice to the public, open forum. Alfredo, do we have anyone that would like to speak?
No, not at the moment.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion made by Andrew Arroyos to approve, second by Yolanda Rodriguez. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Moving on to item number 5, introduction and calling for a public hearing of an ordinance of the City of Socorro, Texas, adopting a comprehensive plan in accordance with Texas Local Government Code and providing for the future adoption of amendment of zoning regulations and/or other regulations as necessary and appropriate to be in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Mr. Arroyos?
Is this for public hearing? So we open public hearing at 5:35. Nobody? So if there's nobody, we will close public hearing at 5:35.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 6, consider and take action on the approval of a proposed ordinance of the City of Socorro, Texas, adopting a comprehensive plan in accordance with Texas Local Government Code and providing for the future adoption or amendment of zoning regulations and/or other regulations as necessary and appropriate to be in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Ms. Quimito?
Thank you, Yadira. Commissioners, I would like to introduce the Matrix team that have assisted us and provided a lot of technical support in preparing this comprehensive plan for the city. It's been a very exciting process, and I've really enjoyed working with the Matrix staff. This is Brendan Cox, the project lead, and Janice Procrent, who are going to make the presentation regarding the comprehensive plan update.
All right. Good evening, everybody. We're very excited to be here with you this evening. Are you all going to run the slides, or I don't have sharing capabilities? Unless someone can grant that to me. Or somebody there can.
Staff
Yep.
is checking
Okay.
on that right now. Does it look like we will be able to grant them? Okay.
Okay, can you all see the slide?
Yes, we can see the screen.
All right, great, thank you. Well, as I said, it's great to be here this evening. Janice and I are really excited. We've been working on this plan for the past year with the city, and we're really excited to present the final to you this evening for consideration for approval. I'm Brent Cox, I'm the project manager, and Janice Pokrant is with me as well. She's the deputy. So Matrix was hired by the city back in July of last year to facilitate the comprehensive plan. And basically, it's an entire redo of the plan, not an update. And we also worked with the Texas Infrastructure Development Group throughout this process. They were our subconsultant on a lot of the transportation components, and they facilitated some of the discussions at our community meetings as well. We've been meeting monthly with the core city project team on this. The city manager, deputy, planning group, as well as recreation group, and the grants coordinator and a police chief. So we've had monthly meetings to go through as we've been developing the draft materials and coordinating the public engagement. So they've been a really great team to work with. We're kind of sad that the project's over because we really enjoyed it, but hopefully there'll be some opportunities in the future. So what is the plan? It's meant to be a long-term plan looking at the next 15 to 20 years for Socorro. It's both general and comprehensive, so it has a lot of information in it, but it covers a lot of different components, as we'll get into the different elements here in a bit. The main guidance that it provides is through the goals and policies for each of those different development criteria. So it will help guide the city, the planning department, planning zoning commission, city council as new development opportunities arise in the future to help reach the vision statement for the plan, which is kind of the overarching guiding component that was developed through our engagement with the community, through our community workshops, our questionnaires, our focus group meetings, steering committee, and engagement with city staff as well. So the plan is not changing any zoning. It may influence future zoning updates. The city is currently updating their zoning ordinance right now, so a lot of the components from this plan will play a role in how that zoning ordinance is updated, but the plan itself does not dictate specific changes to the zoning ordinance. The plan is not regulatory, so the regulatory components may be recommended as goals or policies through the plan, but those will have to go through a separate process. And the plan itself is not modifying any existing land uses, so it again may influence future changes to land uses as redevelopment occurs or as properties are sold for new opportunities, but anything that is currently existing is not going to be dictated that it has to change through this plan. So we'll get into the components a little more detailed, but the plan has 8 different chapters. The first 2 chapters are some summary of Socorro today, some historical background, and covering some input we heard from the community of what makes Socorro a great place to live, why people love living here and want to continue to live here, why people came here from other communities, and an overview of the responses that we got from our community engagement, from our questionnaire. And so that responses are kind of what helped us to identify the different themes and needs that are covered within the plan to make sure that it's meeting what the community wants to see within the plan and how it's going to help guide the community for the future. So there are 5 different plan elements. Each of those elements has kind of some summaries of the different facets of how that's going to shape the plan. And then the important parts from those elements are the goals and policies, which provide that guidance and direction for the city. The future land use map is a pretty important component. Again, it's not regulatory, but it does provide that outlook for future opportunities within the city for growth and where different types of land uses will be located throughout the city. The implementation plan then kind of closes up the whole comprehensive plan, and that provides the toolbox for the city staff of how they're going to achieve those different goals and policies. So the plan themes were developed through our community engagement activities as well as our steering group and focus groups. So these are perpetuated throughout the whole plan. Celebrating Socorro's rural past and historic assets was kind of the resounding guidance that we heard from the community. The mission trail, the Rio Vista Center, and other components are super important for identifying the culture of the city. So not only is it important to protect those through the plan and kind of grow appropriately around those, but as new development occurs, it's important to tie the thematic character into that new development. For example, developing maybe something around the mission should have a facade that's going to kind of blend in with the mission and not be something that's going to detract from the value of it. Providing diverse housing options is important as the community grows and families grow. Children grow up, they want to live in Socorro still, raise their families there, but they need those housing options. So as we worked through the future land use map with the city, we identified some areas where there may be opportunities for not necessarily high density housing development, but higher density than that single family that is prevalent throughout the community. And maybe some mixed use opportunities for where people can live and work within the same space, and that will also help reduce some reliance on vehicle traffic. Another important one was having recreational programs that support all age ranges throughout the community and all ability levels. There was some focus from the community on wanting enhanced after-school programs, improving some of the recreational amenities at parks so they'll be attractive and encourage people to get out there and be more active, making sure that there's recreation opportunities spread out throughout the community and accessible throughout all the different residential neighborhoods. And then another important thing as the community grows is to make sure that there's reliable, accessible community services and facilities, roadways, infrastructure, power, water. A lot of those are not provided by the city, but as the community grows, it's important to work with those providers, maintain those relationships, and make sure that the new growth that's occurring is going to have adequate supply and service area from those outside providers as well. And then the last one that we'll cover is to make sure there's appropriate commercial and employment opportunities throughout the city. We focused on some areas such as Nuevo Hueco Tanks, North Loop, and Alameda to look at some opportunities for shopping districts there, especially along Nuevo Hueco, as people are coming into the city, kind of capturing that as the entrance into the community so people know that what Socorro has to offer, and providing kind of destinations to bring people not only from inside Socorro but from outside, so that money is going to come into the community to help benefit the economic growth, especially to support some of the other goals and policies throughout the plan. Our community engagement occurred throughout the process. We did have a project website, which is where we disseminated most of the information to the community. We also had email lists where people signed up through the website or at the different community events. So we were sending out e-blasts throughout the project to notify people when there were community meetings or when the public draft was available for review. At the start of the project, we had interviews with focus groups, 10 different focus groups as well. So that kind of helped us understand some of the bigger picture drivers for the plan. We had a steering committee that also served as community ambassadors to make sure that their neighborhood, friends, family were staying involved in the plan. All of our outreach and meetings, we had bilingual information so we could try to get the most word out that we could. So we had a really great input from the public on this plan, which we thought was really representative of how engaged and passionate the community is. So we did bring this plan to you all a few weeks ago, and just wanted to give some highlights on some of the changes that occurred between that version and this version. There were some changes to the future land use map, not many, but there were a few land use categories that were inappropriately categorized based on some recent zoning. So we updated that to reflect the current zoning scheme within that area. We provided some more information throughout the plan on the Isleta del Sur Pueblo, not only for that historic perspective, but also to celebrate the community and make sure that they're appropriately captured as an important part of Socorro, and to open up some potential opportunities for maybe grants or funding that could also come to Socorro to help with that community as well. Provided some additional small business support. So the city just accepted the economic development strategy last week. So we wanted to make sure that some of the items that came out of that were integrated into the plan as well to help economic opportunities such as small business incubators to help the community grow as well. There were some goals and policies added for tree preservation and landscape ordinances, which will hopefully be incorporated into that Unified Development Code update that's currently going on. We provided some more input on the foreign trade zone to help with understanding some additional grant opportunities and funding that may be available to help spur economic growth within that. And then we incorporated imagery throughout the plan to help break up some of the text and kind of support the narrative that's within the plan, so it's a little more interesting and easier to read. There are 5 elements throughout the plan: growth and development, quality of life, mobility, public services and infrastructure, and community resilience. I'm gonna go through this first one, and then I'm gonna hand it over to Janice so we can break up our voices a little bit. So the growth and development element is probably what you would consider the most important element for the plan, because it does provide a lot of that land use and development guidance. The future land use map is contained within this element as well. So this is going to help the city planning department a lot for as new opportunities come in. It will help the grants and special services department to have some guidance as well for new opportunities. The shopping district is covered within this element. as well as housing options, and economic development and tourism. So those are important parts to help the community grow and understand some of the benefits that could come from identifying those different land uses. So sorry, this is probably pretty small, hard to read, but if you have the plan, it's a lot easier, and it's all the different land uses are identified a little better of what kind of land use is recommended through there. So if you can see my mouse, this is one of the areas that changed. It was changed from agriculture to ICMU to reflect current zoning. And then there was a heavy industrial component down here along I-10 on the west side, and it was moved over to the east side to reflect some zoning down in that area as well. So one of the important components of this plan was looking at how we can preserve some of the big agricultural areas and kind of keep the residential areas within the central part of the community, not losing sight of the established single-family communities, but looking for areas where we could expand some of that air quote, higher density, the medium density, and mixed use areas, which are, those are kind of centered around some of the existing more dense neighborhoods, and looking to leverage some of the areas up in the northern part, especially around the community college campus, to provide maybe some student housing opportunities up there. Protecting the historic sites was important as well. So there's a couple historic district overlays which are along the Mission Trail and the Rio Vista Center. And there's some guidance for developing around those areas as well. And then looking at where we could enhance some economic or employment opportunities, bringing in that regional commercial along the I-10 corridor. All right, I'm gonna pass off to Janice.
Hi, good evening. I'm so excited to present these items to you. I know that it's a refresher of sorts, and so I'll try to make it a little different than what you heard last time. The quality of life element, and I want to mention real quick, is you'll hear and you'll read some redundant points that we're bringing up in different elements, and that is by design. We wanted to make sure that we hone in on some really important items in the community, and that narrative builds so that when you do go forward for any kind of grant opportunities, you can show the nexus between quality of life and between mobility or conservation. And so you can see how all of these things create the whole plan, but then also how it really affects each other. And so with the quality of life, we have, and Bryn talked a little bit about it, we have the historic districts, and making sure that we know that there's that revitalization component, making sure that it is developed in a way that preserves the character of the area, but then also maybe is an opportunity to bring economic development and ecotourism to your community. And making sure that as the areas around your Rio Vista or some of your historic areas, that it develops in a way that enhances it. Then we also talk about, of course, your historic landmarks and connecting them. That also is an enhancement, is making sure that as your visiting public come in, that they have that connectivity to be able to see all of your different assets that the community has to offer. And then your parks and open spaces actually blend into that, because that's part of your avenue for connectivity. You can have your walking trails, your multi-use trails, your sidewalks, but then you bring in shades, benches, amenities that will come into your parks, which is what we heard from the community is there needs to be that balance in making sure that the parks that are existing are maintained, that they're enhanced, and that you also balance that with some new amenities that you can bring into play. Next slide. Oh yeah, mobility. So mobility kind of brings, and you'll see these nexuses as I'm talking. So your mobility, you talk about your connectivity, being able to provide safe flows for your public, whether they be riding in a car, or as you see in the picture, you see some people that are on a bike, or that maybe they're out for a community event on a sidewalk. There needs to be safe modes for your community. And so we built that into this plan, is making sure that we look at traffic flow, how to reduce that. And I think there was something that your city I just saw is working on to slow people down. There's a campaign with TxDOT and to slow people down within the community, and that's something that we heard, that there are high speeds and you want to make sure that your citizens are safe. Going along with the times and making sure that you have your progressive and looking at electric vehicle charging stations, whether those be in community centers, parks. There's funding opportunities that cities can look forward to be able to help provide this for your citizens. And then, of course, like we talked about, safety improvements, but then your truck routes. You have a growing industry with your commercial districts, and making sure that those trucks are being placed in a safe area again for your citizens as they travel. And then public services. Looking at consolidated government offices, that's something that we heard for staff. I like to call it the one-stop shop, where your citizens can come in and know that they don't have to go to different community offices to satisfy their needs. Looking at that civic campus, but then also looking at post-secondary educational opportunities for your residents, so that you can capture some of the students that don't want to leave, that or some of your community that want to go on for additional educational opportunities. But then looking at your public safety buildings, I know that there was a concern that was raised. You have the railroad that dissects your community, and at times it has caused an impediment for your emergency services to be able to get through. So maybe there's an opportunity to be able to have additional public safety buildings, so that there will always be that safety component. Whatever is happening in the community, you don't have that delay. And then also talking about health services within the community. We built that into the plan because that was something too that was mentioned, is when you do have to go to some of these medical appointments, that you have to travel, and it would be nice to be able to capture that within your community. And then bringing it all into capital improvement planning, and being able to provide that connectivity to how the city plans for the funding of these opportunities, whether that be that they do that on the 5-year basis, and they work with the implementation plan that we put together to be able to provide that funding. Community resiliency, balancing your new growth and development with the preservation that we've heard the community wants to have, making sure that you are looking at your stormwater improvements, that those are done in a way that is provides the safety you need for your residents, but then also provides the aesthetic appeal that you need to. Conservation subdivisions is something that we also provided in here, and we talked about it a little bit before, but basically what that is providing a way for developers to come in and to have the development with the densities they want, and still being able to preserve some land so that you get that preservation component, but maybe there's a little bit additional density so that they can provide that preservation. Being an active participant in water management and conservation planning is important for the community, and we put that in this document. I know that you don't own your own utilities, but it is important for you to be at the table with these utility companies and make sure that they provide the needs that you have for your residents. And then talk about some renewable energy. Maybe there's some opportunities. I joked about it with Bren the other day, it's so windy there. You guys have such great wind. Maybe there's some renewable energy opportunities there. We didn't talk about wind energy, but solar energy definitely is something that is, you guys have beautiful sunny days, and maybe there's ways to be able to bring in some renewable energy to the properties that you're wanting to also conserve. So the implementation plan in section is really staged so that you can look at things in different compartments where you can have your short term, your midterm, and your long term. And so not that staff is always just going to be looking at the short term, but they can kind of be able to schedule out their time and being able to tackle some of the things that are going to take a little bit longer. And then your short term. Your short term is your low hanging fruit that you can do fairly quickly. And it really shows the citizens that you're making progress on the plan, and it builds that excitement. And so the city has already started looking at some of these things, which is really exciting to know that they are hitting the ground running. They are looking already, and they've already contracted somebody for the Unified Development Code. And so with that contractor can use the items that we've put into this plan to really be able to I hate to use the term again, but hit the ground running in moving forward with this code revision. Develop prioritization and maintenance and improvement schedule for your parks and recreation facilities. And so these are just some of the examples that we have for short-term implementation actions. Midterm, utilize the economic recovery strategic plan. So that was just recently approved by City Council. I think it was this month. And so being able to utilize and start targeting these, and you would think that would be a short-term plan, but these things take time. And so the city, I'm sure, is already looking at and identifying those targets from that plan. But being able to make that progression and being able to have that as an accomplishable task could take a few years to have some of that go through. And then also establishing facade improvement programs. Those are actually a really cool tool that you can use in your community. You have some really great older buildings, and maybe they just need some assistance in being able to revitalize the front of the building, or maybe even the parking lot. That goes a long way to helping improve the character of the community, especially to your visiting community that's coming in. And then develop that multimodal transportation master plan. So some of these things, they will take time, and it takes staff resources, and some of these might take some additional consultant services, just depending on what staff availability is. But these things we've identified as some of the midterm implementation actions. And then within the document, we have identified some of the potential funding sources. Local, of course, with your capital improvement plan, your general funds, but there's state resources that could be available for you. Texas Water Development Board just approved a ton of money this last session that will go towards smaller communities. And that is also why we said you need to make sure that you have a place at the table with your utility companies, and they can use you as a tool when they're getting funding for your community. Then, of course, TxDOT, you and the Socorro team has done an amazing job of being able to leverage funds from TxDOT. Texas Historical Foundation, again, Socorro is a model community to being able to access this funding and really set themselves up and set the stage to being able to get more funding. And then you have, of course, some federal funds, the American Rescue Plan, Department of Energy, FEMA would be a great organization to be able to get some funding for some of your drainage and your flooding issues. And then private corporations. Some of these are really great with your quality of life needs, whether they be parks and open space, trails. A lot of times these foundations and corporations have the annual amount of money that they will give to communities. And so just being able to look at some of these and identify some ways to get you towards those short and midterm and long-term goals. And then I think we're done, and we are available, Brendan and I both, if you have any questions for us. This has truly been a pleasure to be able to work with you and the city staff and the citizens. We have learned so much about Socorro and have really grown to love the community. And so we look forward to any questions that you might have.
Yeah, I have a question. So I guess the biggest thing that we deal with here in planning and zoning is going to be any type of changes going from one code to the other. I was trying to count our current number of identified
Zoning districts?
different zoning districts. Did we add any more? Did we take any off? And then if so, as part of your consulting, did you guys do the definitions for those, or we have? I mean, I guess that's part of the process that we would later. I mean, as a city, would do that.
So the comprehensive plan, we actually reduced the number of land use categories from the 2014 comprehensive plan. But again, those aren't zoning categories, so they're a little bit different. We tried to match up to what is in the current zoning, but the city is going through a zoning update right now, so the number of categories may change as that process moves forward.
And since this is the first time we've ever gone through this, I guess this is just kind of just the general broad strokes changes, and then as a city we have to implement these changes. I was thinking that there would be more concrete. Hey, we're identifying these lands as future, as kind of the potential private-public spaces. I thought it was all great. I was just thinking there'd be a little bit more projects identified that we can start working on, but I guess that's part of the implementation phase that happens after this is all done, right?
Yeah.
Some of it will be, yes. In the comprehensive plan does identify the Rio Vista area as an opportunity for some of that civic center, kind of, as Janice was talking about, the governmental center complex. The city doesn't own a whole lot of land within the community, so it was hard to identify a specific place. There is some land that's owned, but likely wouldn't be big enough to support the full government complex. So the plan looks at some partnerships with private landowners or others that maybe could be used to develop that civic center complex around the Rio Vista Center.
Those are my questions.
And if I can say to you, I understand what you're saying, that you were looking for some additional guidance. And I think when you start to really look at the plan, you'll see some of that. As much as we can give in a comprehensive plan, your comprehensive plan is really kind of your guide for when you start to do your actual regulating ordinances. And so as these ordinances come through with your Unified Development Code, they'll use this plan to guide them through on the policies that have been brought forward. So when you were talking about maybe some of the land use, there's this future land use map that can be a guide for Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council to use as they're looking at some of these decisions that you're making. And then also as you're making the decisions on your zoning code, you can look back to this as your guide and say, okay, this code will help us to get where we need to be for this 20-year plan for our community. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
We don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you all.
Thank you. Can I go ahead and ask if anyone would like to make a motion?
To pass, to accept the
Yes.
comprehensive plan? Okay, so I'd make a motion to accept comprehension plan.
Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion made by Andrew Arroyos to approve, second by Yolanda Rodriguez. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Moving on to item number 7, consider and take action on the approval of a proposed preliminary plat for Horizon 10 Phase 1 subdivision, being a portion of Track 35 and a portion of Track 36 and all of Track 37 to 39, Lane Clark Survey 298, located at 12400 Gateway East Boulevard. Mr. Botello?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Jose Botello, planner with the City of Socorro. Item number 7 on the agenda is the Horizon 10 Phase 1 subdivision preliminary plat. If you give me one moment, please. So some general information on this preliminary plat. The lot size is 63.971 acres. The zoning for the property is ICMUD. The property is currently vacant. The future land use map listed this property as a medium-density residential, and so the summary of the request is for approval of a preliminary plat for Horizon 10 Phase 1 subdivision. And Planning and Zoning staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat for Horizon 10 Phase 1 subdivision. And so in the next slide, you'll see the location map. This property is situated on the gateway within close vicinity to I-10. And then followed by the zoning map, you'll see the property outlined in a yellow line. The purple is denoting the ICMUD zoning district. And then you'll see a couple of pictures of the property, which were taken from Gateway East Boulevard. And as you can see, the property is currently vacant. And then you'll see an aerial image showing the property. And then on the next slide, you'll see page 6 of 41 from the traffic impact analysis. This is the vicinity map looking at the property and certain points for the analysis of traffic. And then on the next slide, what's going on the next slide is the 2024 existing traffic volumes map. It should be showing up shortly on the screen. There we go. The traffic counts, the existing traffic counts on those 3 points. And then followed by the 2025 build-out traffic volumes, a prediction of what the traffic would the impact would be from this development. And then the development schedule showing that the estimated completion would be sometime in December 2025. And followed by the preliminary plat. And so once again, the summary of the request is for approval of a preliminary plat for Horizon 10 Phase 1 subdivision. And at this time, staff can answer any questions. We also have Mr. George Halul, Mr. Cody Adamek, and Mr. Jerry Benavides present as well to answer any questions.
I just have one question.
Mr. Cisneros?
What's the what are they gonna build on there?
It's an industrial development, so they'll be developing 3 warehouses.
Logistical, warehousing?
I believe so.
I don't have any more questions.
And all the entrances will be on through I-10, correct?
Correct. Mhm. Oh,
I don't
through
have
the
any
gateway,
questions.
sorry.
Gateway, I'm sorry. Yes. I don't have any questions.
I don't have any.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, who would like to take that second?
I'll go ahead, second.
Thank you. I have a motion made by Andrew Arroyos to approve, second by Osvaldo Reza. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Moving on to item number 8, consider and take action on the approval of a proposed preliminary and final plat for Baba Unit 2 subdivision, being a portion of the OA Danielson Survey Number 316, El Paso County, Texas, located at Gateway West Boulevard. Mr. Botello?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Item number 8 on the agenda is the Baba Unit 2 subdivision, the preliminary and the final plat. So some general information on this subdivision. The lot size is 16.078 acres. There's no zoning as it's within our Socorro 2-mile ETJ. The current land use is vacant. Future land use map also doesn't apply in this case as it's outside our city limits. So the summary of the request is for approval of a preliminary and final plat for Baba Unit 2 subdivision. And Planning and Zoning staff recommends approval of the preliminary and final plat for Baba Unit 2 subdivision. And so in the next slide, you'll see the location map. The thick purple line is our city limit, so it's just outside our city limit, but within our 2-mile ETJ. And then followed by the zoning map. So the transparent purple is the overlay showing that this property is within our 2-mile ETJ. And then these pictures taken from the property from Gateway East Boulevard, followed by the aerial image. This property is right next to the new QT fuel station that's on the Gateway East and Nuevo Hueco Tanks Boulevard. And then followed by the preliminary plat and the final plat for Baba Unit 2. And so in summary, the request is for approval of preliminary and final plat for Baba Unit 2 subdivision. And at this time, staff can answer any questions. We also have Ms. Lynette Nevares with Trey and Associates available to answer any questions as well.
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
What are they gonna have on there?
Lynette? Sorry.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. Lynette Nevares with Train Associates. We don't know exactly the end use, but it's apparently going to be a warehouse.
Thank you. And Mr. Botello, because it's in the ATJ, it's basically a formality. We just approve it and that's it.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
No, we're reviewing the subdivision standard, and we're following the subdivision ordinance.
Okay.
It complies with.
yeah, but because
It
it's.
is, because it's in the ETJ, it goes through both the
Yeah.
city and the county.
Very well. I don't have any more questions. Make a motion to approve.
I second.
I have a motion made by Enrique Cisneros to approve, second by Andrew Arroyos. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on to item number 9, Planning and Zoning Commissioners Report.
Anybody?
I don't have.
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 10, Planning and Zoning Department Report. Ms. Quimito?
Thank you, Yadira. A couple of items, not all of them directly planning development related, but worth sharing. Socorro PD is partnering with TxDOT on their Be Safe, Drive Smart campaign and initiating Operation Slowdown, which is set for July 19th through August the 4th, increasing the police presence, encouraging drivers to drive smart and decrease their speed and to help avoid crashes. On Thursday, Congresswoman Veronica Escobar is going to be at City Council to give a presentation on the appropriations funding that she has secured for the City of Socorro and the City of Socorro's projects. We're continuing partnering with TxDOT, and next, actually tomorrow, we will have our second workshop with the El Paso District's Traffic Incident Management Program. They are trying to increase the collaboration between all of the entities within the El Paso TxDOT district to help manage incidents as they also can lead to secondary crashes if not managed correctly. And then in the world of projects, the improvements to the railroad tracks at Moon Road got pushed back a little, so the lead date is in March of 2025 as they were trying to coordinate the other projects in that list of funding projects. But we're all set to we're all set on our part for that project to move forward, see those improvements to the intersection and the new sidewalk. And hopefully moving forward a lot quicker on the opening of Rio Vista Bridge. The consultants say that it's looking like just a couple more weeks for that intersection to open with the improvements, so we don't have to delay with scaled back traffic improvements. It should be open with the new travel lane. And I know I had one more. Rio Vista, and I think, well, maybe not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Quimito. Moving on to item number 11, consider and take action on the adjournment of this meeting. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
I have a motion made by Andrew Arroyos to adjourn, second by Yolanda Rodriguez. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned at 6:27. Thank you all for coming.